And sup fuckers. No.
This dildo was just flopping all over the ground. I didn't know whose it belonged
Dude.
to.
No, shit, we're live, dude.
Oh shit.
Welcome everyone to the 10K Run podcast. I'm Amos Joseph, joined by my co-host Brook Potter, who is in the UK. How's it going, Brook?
It's going well, Amos. Glad that you're back in the land of power, seeing as you had an incident. Would you please explain to our dear fans, friends, and listeners what it is that happened and why we are 15 minutes late into the show that is not quite 100?
Well, obviously, there was a terrorist attack. No.
Was that aliens?
No. So we were
Alphabet
doing the
people?
No, probably. We were doing the Religion Zero. It was just Brooke, myself, and our friend Conk. And what happened was I woke up, I usually get up like 10 minutes before the show, and being it's in my room here, I just kind of come over and all right,
kind of roll across the floor and flop onto your studio.
I'm like, all right, here we go, doing the show. But no, yeah, I woke, my phone was just going at it, trying to wake me up, and I get up and I'm like, oh, this is interesting. And I'm looking at my phone and I'm seeing all these notifications, as all usual, but I'm seeing it kind of cuts off. Like, it was weird. I look, like, the signal's not quite there. I'm getting these, like, things aren't refreshing. I'm checking to make sure my Wi-Fi is working. That's not working. And the modem's right here. Yes. And then I look over and I'm like, my clock is off. Something's going on here. And then I'm like, I don't hear my AC. It's really quiet in the building because I live in an apartment. I go downstairs to our utility room. Everything's off. And I'm like,
something's not right.
So then I just grab some stuff, my keys. I go in my car, I drive around town. Nothing. No power anywhere. And granted, it's a town of like 3,000 people, but
that's respectable. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and then I had to drive over to another town. I figured I'm not gonna based on where I am, I realized it's probably best to go a different direction. I wasn't going to go towards the cities. I was actually going to try to go away to areas that I know that are let's see here. Yeah. Places somewhere I know I'd get a signal. So I drove there and yeah, I got a signal. I popped onto the show, let you guys know quick what's going on. I got your one text, wake up.
Because I mean, let's just for context, right? I assumed you were sleeping, right? I was
because basically I see your message, but it doesn't. I'm not connected at that point, so it's not telling you that I got the if I didn't get the message. Yeah. So yeah, then I joined, and then I'm as I'm talking to you guys on the show, I'm also pulling up on my phone, checking for power, where all that's going on. But yeah, no, we're back online.
Good man.
It wasn't. I for a moment thought the entire state went out of power or something. And I thought, I mean, with which we'll get into different things, but
yeah, there's a lot of things going on in the states that we need to discuss. So I'm sure we'll discuss.
Like for power. One, racism is bad.
Racism bad.
I mean, guys. It is, but just it's so overblown. Like, I want to be clear. It's so overblown as a topic. It's almost like people think you don't know. And it's like, obviously we do know.
Racism bad.
Yeah. We're making fun of the sentiment, not the message. Be really clear about that.
Actually bad. Yeah. Okay.
It is actually bad. Yes. So Jesus Christ. The fact that we have to explain this, like,
welcome to 2020. I thought we'll have flying cars instead. Like maple syrup is racist.
But before we get into it, I'm just gonna quickly touch on
a little house cleaning. Balls cleaning.
Balls cleaning.
Yeah, we do like cleaning our balls. That's
we do. If you guys do if you want to support the show, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, like the video, share with a friend if you think they'll enjoy the show. Different other ways you can support us. Check out our subscribe star to see about ways of being able to pledge to the show monthly. That gives us just, an little extra bit, so we can actually provide you not only the content we're providing you now, but also extra content on top. Our raw takes, our other things. The raw takes is kind of the big selling point we're trying to push, like a more real talk that we give to people.
Stuff we can't discuss on the YouTube channel generally.
Yeah,
Drugs, sex,
whether
and
it's
rock and roll.
Whether it's things that maybe I'm not too quickly wanting to reveal in a public sense, or just in general in our lives. Let's say, I'm moving somewhere, or I live somewhere else, or I'm doing something else, or when Brook is doing something. Like, we did a stream on our raw takes to just talk about his place. Now, is it really that big of a deal? Like, if we saw his place, is it going to be some huge, thing? Or is it going to be like PewDiePie, where we find out like Brook has no legs? No, but it's just one of those things where we're like,
it's a little more private. I don't necessarily want everyone
to know.
Yeah.
So basically, yeah, and then of course, if you guys, that basically allows you to help out with the show monthly, and we give you a little extra content on top of because of that. And then also there is Tactical Soap, which is our sponsor. Go to tacticalsoap.com, you type in the 10K rum coupon code, which is just 10KRUM. A little bit of a kickback to the show. So now that we're beyond that,
a shout out to our top tier.
Yes, Edmundo.
Yes, Edmundo. What's happening, bro? Hope you're doing well, man.
Yep. So, let's see. Yeah, Brook did do. So we got a Brian in the chat saying Brook did do a couple videos. I think you got a part 3 coming out, right?
Yeah, I got a part 3. I mean, there's not Brian. Yeah, I did on the move. There's not a lot of personal information. Like, I haven't really shown much of the house and stuff like that. And I haven't like gotten into the details of what
this street, this unit number.
Yeah, like how I got the place, the discussions with the guy, and the negotiations. Those a little more of that kind of stuff. I said on the thing. So yeah, I mean it's very cosmetic, the videos I've done. Please check it out. It's on my YouTube channel. Anybody's interested, just search for Brook Potter. And I have 2 of them. There's
everything's
a religious one.
Everything's in the links below.
Yeah, the links are below.
So what else has been going on since the move?
Nothing much has been going on. I mean, I'm still out in Wales, so everything is pretty much locked down. The pubs are open, but they only open to reservations. So I got to go and reserve a table for a certain amount of time.
You guys don't have Native Americans?
What's that? Oh, reservation. We'll get to that. We'll definitely get to that. But no, because of the what do they call it? Contact and trace, or track and trace, or whatever it's called, some kind of thing where they want to keep track of who comes into the pubs, where they're at. In case somebody comes in, shows symptoms, they'll then contact everybody who was there during that time and say, hey, you got to self-isolate and this sort of thing. But I mean, as you and I have been discussing, I'm pretty sure this thing has devolved into something that is less lethal. I don't suspect I'm at any kind of risk. So I'm kind of really feeling kind of the fuck off vibe when it comes to this stuff. However, out here in Wales, they've just introduced mandatory masks if you go on any kind of public transport. So if I go on a fine, I think there's an enforcement fine of like £100 or something like that. I don't know if they're actually going to enforce it, because the Supreme Court out here kind of said that's really pushing it, sort of thing.
I mean, but the way I'm seeing it right now is, at least in the States, like making it a mandate is really just because people are stupid.
Okay.
You have to put in a law if you want to try to create an environment where people are at least practicing safety. Like, you're not going to be able to enforce like a hand washing or a hand sanitizer type of thing.
Sure.
So when it comes on to it, the mask thing, like, I'm starting to get, I'm not like on board with like mask mandate because take away people's freedom, because I don't think mask mandates are really like, if it truly does just be a temporary measure, I don't see it as like some crazy, taking away your freedoms. I think the whole thing with like closing down businesses and trying to control for things, when you can just properly inform businesses to make better decisions with cleanliness, social distancing and stuff, and they can do it on their own. But to the level that they put it at now, that basically completely it's our economy is going to basically be screwed in the
Yes.
next year.
Yeah.
It's
The masks are the least of your problems. To
well,
be fair.
yeah. So I'm thinking wearing a mask, and if they had to make some sort of mandate for it, or at least businesses are enforcing that for their own thing, like I think that's a whole separate thing. I'm hearing right wingers and even some libertarians like, oh, I get to mitigate my own risk, and I am risking to wear my mask. I'm like, yeah, but if you're somehow a vector for transmission, you know, it's not like anything can happen, and just but there are stupid people out there. So I think that's the least of your freedoms, quote unquote, being eroded versus everything else. Things are reopening, but states also understand that you're not just gonna they're not just gonna shut down states all over again.
I don't suspect they will.
Yeah, they're not gonna.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, they're not gonna do it to the level that they did before, because obviously the economy is gonna just stall that much longer, and then people could, we could get a Minneapolis 2.0 going on.
Is that like HIV that evolves into AIDS kind of thing? Like, is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah, it's like I'm seeing people that are like, I don't want to wear a mask, and then people that would force themselves into businesses.
Yeah. No, I
mean,
agree.
In a way, though, I mean, we can't really argue businesses can do what they want.
I agree. If some business, if private business, especially if it's an elderly person who's working in the shop, I understand. You put a sign up saying, look, we request that you wear a mask before you come into the shop. I could respect that. Doing it statewide, yeah, again, I'm apprehensive. Out in Wales, it's not mandatory right now. They're pushing it for public transport, and again, I could kind of understand that, because it is an enclosed space, in a bus or a metro or kind of underground sort of thing. So yeah, okay, maybe I could kind of see that a little bit. But for people like me with a beard, right? So I've got this Moses that's growing on my face right now, right? So the other day I was actually accused of being an Odinist. I can't imagine why, but if I wear a mask, it's not going to do anything, because everything could just filter through the beard, right?
Yeah.
So I have to get one of these face coverings, as I think you may have seen on my Instagram and elsewhere, where it's around the neck and it's like a balaclava, and it goes all the way up to here. It covers the whole thing, right? And I just
That's how you get the ladies.
Yeah, I just look like one big boob, that, sticking out from a bra, right?
Is that how you meet the ladies? You kind of
yeah, it's just. It's you got to use everything you got, man. So, but yeah, this is what we're up against out here. And I did buy a balaclava just for that purposes. When I was moving out here in England, same thing. It's mandatory to get on the bus and stuff like that. So I'm not minding it too much. But when you get off of the bus or the tube or the underground or the metro, the subway, whatever, walking around is no problem. People aren't wearing masks, except for the elderly. I see the elderly wearing masks.
Yeah.
I do my best to social distance. If they're coming one way, I'll stop. I'll let them pass. But generally, nobody's wearing a mask out here. I think, at least in Wales and England, I know people are fucking over this shit now.
Well, being outdoors is a different thing, because transmission is not as
it's not as risky. Yeah.
Right. So I get that. Now I'm kind of on the side, and even just growing up in Taiwan and stuff. I'm fairly. I have more Americans, sensibilities to not want to, because I feel a certain way. Right, but wear a goddamn mask, guys. Just
it's not gonna kill you. It's
yeah. Yeah, and people are like, oh, I can't breathe. How are you wearing it then? What are you doing? No one told you to go for a marathon with an N95 mask.
On that note, that is something I am concerned about, because I know in some places in the US, if you're going to the gym, they're requesting you to wear a mask in the gym. And that is actually very dicey, especially if you're breathing heavy, you're doing heavy work.
So here's the thing then.
Yeah. Don't
go to that gym.
Well, it's like a statewide thing. So some states would have it, some states wouldn't. I'm hoping out here.
I get that. But so you've already put in place the measures to require people to wear masks.
Yes.
And people then make the decision to be stupid, to cause themselves to asphyxiate, basically.
Yes, we do.
That's on them.
When stupid people asphyxiate, right? Or
but that's
asphyxiation bad.
But I mean, but that's on them already at that point.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
you're already trying to balance for stupid people by putting in mask mandates. Now I'm not thinking like just put in like huge fines, but like the polarization of either my freedoms don't wear a mask to basically like to wear a mask or you're gonna kill everybody. It's like just wear a mask, go about your day. If you can't breathe, obviously take it off and like take a few breaths or something. But you shouldn't be doing anything so strenuous that you can't breathe with the mask on. If you're doing something like that, do it outdoors or don't go to a plate. Don't do that thing.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think for private business, as long as it's voluntary, I don't really have an issue with it. I see our friend Robert Frank has been making a lot of videos concerning the mask and how I think he went out somewhere last night with the guys and he made a point that he ain't wearing no mask. And if somebody comes up to him and says, wear a mask, he's just going to like pull out a couple $100 bills and be like, fuck off. Like I will pay you to
in like
alone.
clubs and bars and stuff.
I think, well, he's not much of a clubber. I think he's going to a bar or something like that. So,
well, they have every right to tell him to wear a mask then.
Yeah, they could. But he's like, money talks, bullshit walks. He's not wearing a mask. So, I guess we'll have to listen to the podcast and see how that.
No, I get that. I get that, and I also.
Yeah. Anyway, there are bigger things going on in the U.S. besides the mandatory mask.
God damn it!
Mask thing.
No, because this is actually something that kind of bothers me a bit. That's why I'm kind of like, I'm starting to actually sympathize with at least understanding like the need to wear a mask in public places. At home, I'm not wearing a mask at home. I'm not wearing a mask in my car, but I have masks in my car and I'll wear them where I'm required to.
Yeah. I don't really give a shit. If I see some place that says to wear a mask, I'll respect the private property. But yeah, if they didn't do this mandatory mask thing on the transportation, I wasn't wearing it. The minute I got to Wales and I jumped off the train at Cardiff, I took the mask off.
Yeah, well, yeah, like, that's normal, and that's you're still safe for the most part.
It was only mandatory in England at the time. So once I hit Wales, which is technically like a different country, I took it off, and it's like fuck this shit.
Yeah, lower population density too, though.
Yeah, there are more sheep here than there are people, apparently. But yeah, that's
right. So it's obviously it's different. It's like,
well, it's like, different rules.
Drop all these Americans in the middle of freaking Taipei and watch them try to refuse wearing a mask.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just,
yeah, Brian is saying the mask is not as useful as I mean, it's not going to protect you. It's not going to keep you from getting the virus. But if you have the virus, it might limit the distance that it
gets I have to disagree with Brian there because of the mass use of masks in places like in Asia have been fairly effective.
What it is a lot of Americans think in terms of the mask is to protect you from getting the disease. But that's not why the Asians wear it. The Asians wear it when they are sick.
Well, yeah, I'd say it's a yes and a no. It depends. So it
depends on the mask, obviously. If it's like an
if someone else is sick and not wearing a mask, and I'm not sick wearing a mask,
yeah,
there is technically a decreased chance that I catch the disease.
Yes, but you can
now if they're wearing a mask, right? And if they're wearing a mask and I'm wearing a mask, then that's almost multiplied on each other to mitigate the risk even further. Here's the other thing. If they're, and then in the same way, if they're sick wearing a mask and I'm not sick not wearing a mask, the risk is also different.
Yeah, that's the point I'm making. So even when we used to travel, if you hit the airport, you'd see Asians walking around with the masks. And for a lot of Westerners, they're thinking the mask is protecting the Asian person from breathing our sick Western germs. But that's not what it is. They wear it because they are sick and they do not want to spread their sickness.
But I mean, my understanding too is it's both ways.
It depends on the mask. So if you have like a proper N95 3M mask and it's got the seal, that will protect you from.
I'm not even advocating for that. I'm just saying like, because you got these people that posted a picture like, oh, this guy was doing drywall, and he was wearing a surgical mask. I'm like, first off, that's dumb. You actually wear a proper ventilator to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
And then they say, see, and then he has dust all over his mouth and stuff. And they say, if you think you can protect against a disease, look at this. And I'm like, It's not how it works.
That's a straw man. That's not what it is. But anyway, let's not spend the entire show discussing the masks. I think completely agree. If you want to wear it. I don't think you should necessarily do it by force. I have no problems with businesses that say they want that, you know?
Right. So, yeah, it's anyways, now that we're 20 minutes into it,
20 minutes talking about, this is exactly the kind of thing we got to avoid talking about masks. Oh my God. It's so funny. So what's happening with Kanye? Is he still running for president?
He dropped out.
I heard that was a rumor and he's actually still running. I don't know which is which.
Doesn't matter. Like, doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
He's
not going to win. That would be interesting if the Kanye thing persists. But the rumor why he dropped out was because he might have actually been affecting Trump. Do you think like he was taking the black vote? Is that what's going on?
No, I mean he's talked about running for president way before, so we've all heard about this. But you know, I mean, it doesn't really. I don't think it really plays out for him really in any way. It's a publicity stunt, I think, for him. Maybe someone just maybe he had whatever he does in his own time. Someone said something to him to cause him to consider running.
Right.
Usually when celebrities are doing this, my thought is they just kind of want to do something crazy. Britney Spears shaving her head, Kanye. Oh, geez, another Kanye thing. Kanye interrupting Taylor Swift.
I'm gonna let you finish.
Yeah, but or it's all sorts of ways you can play it, and I
think the Kanye effect, which is something that was very interesting that seems to be coming out in this election cycle more than any, is the rise of the black conservatives in the US.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you got a chance to see the documentary that was put out by, what was his name? Larry Elder.
You told me about it, yeah.
Uncle Tom. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you get to see it?
No, but you told me about it, and I heard about it before you told me, so I know. Yeah, it just came out, didn't it?
Yeah, like a couple of weeks ago. It's on demand, and I think you could buy it online, streaming at different points and stuff like that. Very, very good documentary about, black relations in the United States from the time of slavery, going right through the Jim Crow, understanding the Civil Rights Act and all of these different types of things. Also understanding the rules of the different political parties, the Democrats and the Republicans. And it follows the life of a lot of, conservative talk people, business owners, black business owners and stuff like that. And talking about how, they were raised in a Democratic home and they were raised in believing the Democrats were for them, and how they kind of just from education and from reading the party manifestos realized that, wait a minute, I'm actually a Republican or I'm actually a conservative, as the case might be. So it was an excellent, excellent documentary. I don't want to give too much away, but I think if you did watch it, you and I could probably do like a raw takes, kind of really getting into it. Because I mean, the issues are things that we've discussed before in terms of, the single motherhood issues in the black community, the rise of the welfare state, basically encouraging, women and single motherhood, how even entrepreneurship and all of these other types of things. When the blacks went from slavery and unable to read within 50 years, having at least 50% literacy rate, and considering where they started, from slavery to that, very, very impressive growth until the welfare state and all of these other government programs that came into effect. And then we just started to see the decline. So it's a brilliant documentary. I would recommend it. If anybody's seen it, put some comments below. We could definitely discuss it.
Right. Yeah, I'll definitely have to check it out then.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe
you're seeing them more and more prominent. I mean, Kanye is one. Larry Elder's another one. Even Larry Sharp from the Libertarian Party. He's a kind of man of color.
Yeah, I haven't heard him talk too much about it. At least, I mean, then again, I haven't followed him too much lately. He's just been doing his own thing, his podcast and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, our friends
But
over at Harper Supremacy got him on, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yep. That was a while ago, though. It was basically like on the eve, pretty much the eve of his election. Well, not him being elected, obviously, but the election for New York governor, and he got more national attention than statewide attention, which sucked because he's
a brilliant guy.
Like everyone freaking knew him, but it's like he, then he doesn't win, because that state is just so overrun.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing with like, what's her name? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She won her by-election pretty substantially.
80% or something?
Yeah, like ridiculously. And I'm kind of like, what the? Like, who is voting for this woman?
Well, exactly. Like
that's exactly the question, right? The Democrats are definitely pulling out all the stops at this point.
Yeah, like I think Minnesota hasn't had a Republican governor since I was in high school.
Right.
So
I mean, you had a couple independents though, didn't you? Have like
Jesse Ventura. No, he's the only independent that's ever been elected into governor.
Okay, so he's the only independent. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, interesting enough. And then he people were talking about him like he had some good policies and stuff, but then I don't remember too much because I was in Taiwan at the time.
Right. I didn't know much either. I remember liking him because I was kind of into wrestling at that time as well, so I would have been pretty young. And he was very against the drug war at that time. I wasn't against it. I was like a Christian conservative at the time, but
yeah,
I remember his speeches about
like
that.
for being an independent, he had some pretty he just kind of took at it as more of like a pragmatic approach to being the governor. I know he tried to work with some local police to working on reforming and changing some local gun laws and stuff.
Yes.
To allow people to just be more, free to protect themselves and that. But anyways, yeah. So now we've got this guy that,
basically let Minneapolis burn to the ground and then beg for money.
He got pretty aggressive while it was happening.
No, only after it really started to get out of control.
Well, yeah, then he started stepping and be like, he's like, this is not this has gone way beyond
George Floyd.
Honoring thing. Yeah. And, which is true. Well, at least, he's forced to make that statement, but
yeah, because the businesses are leaving. So if the businesses are leaving, you got no employment and tax base.
And then, sending the guard in there, and then, I mean, he was pretty openly just saying I'm in contact with the president, in case we need some backup.
But that again is still late in the game because he let a lot of that shit happen.
I know. And then, it was freaking insane. People were asking me if I knew anything about it, and it was depressing seeing all that happen. And then for him to come in so late in the game, and then to where he is, acting like it didn't happen, because now while we're still technically under what they call peacetime emergency,
right?
Since March, which. Yeah. It's good and bad. It depends on what it's doing. It's helping some people, but in the meantime, he's also using that to I think someone called him a drunken monarch. Okay. Just because I think he's become so drunk with the power he has, and he has a Democrat legislature that is backing him 100%. Because he extends his own power. He does that, and then they have to vote against it in both houses, and they can only vote it against it in one house, which is the Senate, which is So it's he can just keep going. Granted, though, I mean, it's just because there's a spike in cases. There's So they are talking about mask mandates. They're talking about a lot of other things too. But he's also trying to insert all these other things. now he's using his emergency powers to push issues like the police reform and all this other stuff.
I mean, that was didn't they do the defund the police movement and pass it in the Senate?
There's still a lot of stuff to iron out with that, though. It wasn't just like now the police doesn't exist in Minneapolis. The police is still there.
I totally get that, but it did start there, and they did pass it in Minneapolis. Am I correct?
It's been agreed upon by Minneapolis, but I haven't heard much as to if they've actually implemented anything.
Right. So I mean, here is of course this is the insanity of this whole thing. You know, I mean, it's going to be a test tube of this liberal progressive agenda. If I'm not mistaken, the places where this defunding of the police has been tried, the crime has completely escalated out of control.
Yeah.
Not that the riots were exactly peaceful. Again, separating the demonstrators from the rioters by all means. But again, in the beginning of this whole thing, the media was there spewing that, you know, these are all peaceful protests in front of burning buildings. I believe mandates did come down from the governor basically saying not to pursue and to police the area. They allowed these people to come through and run rickshaw over the private businesses and these other things. When it finally got out of hand, as you say, rightly, he eventually called in the National Guard. So he goes from it all being all peaceful and all this other kind of stuff. They table a motion to defund the police. And then they start asking the federal government for $500 million to fix the peaceful the result, the outcome of this peaceful protest, which Trump, of course, said, no, well, fuck off. That is insane.
Yeah. This is what's really tricky is when we're talking about a lot of these issues, especially as libertarians, is I see, like, you and I are talking about it in the pragmatic sense of as they are. Yes. Like, we look at it how these issues are addressed and dealt with as they are. Obviously, we'd look at the world and be like, well, it'd be better if things were like this other way. Like, for example, you heard about the Portland thing.
What's the Portland thing?
The supposed secret. Well,
oh right,
unmarked unmarked vehicles that came in and took people away.
Yes, I heard about that.
Now, I understand. Like, I'm actually, I've heard both sides of this, and I'm like, okay, I get it. I understand. Like, this is it's a bit of alarming to see that the government could just have unmarked vehicles going out and rounding people up.
Yeah,
that is alarming.
Agreed.
But the reality is, when people are saying, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this for weeks and weeks and weeks.
Yeah. We're going to burn down this building. We're going to tear down this monument.
It's like if my First Amendment rights should be protected if I made a certain threat against certain people.
Right.
But I never called to action. But
even if you made a threat against the president, they'll still come and investigate your ass.
Exactly. Right. Now is that so that's why I was saying I didn't want to say that out loud because in case I do get but I'm saying it.
I'll say it over here in the Empire. It's okay.
The fucking Empire. But you know what I mean? Like I have First Amendment rights. I can say these things, and in a truly First Amendment kind of freedom kind of society, people should be able to say a lot of things. I can understand at least the exceptions for like call to action. Libel, slander, things like that. Yeah, I mean, sure.
But if I just say libel and slanderous things, but you're not away from the consequences, which is we have laws for that.
Exactly. So I think this is with the argument of I won't mention names because this might like incite certain things because I know these people. But it's like there's a split in libertarians where some are like, really? You're surprised that the government sent people to go round these people up who are threatening violence all day long for weeks?
Yeah, exactly.
It wasn't necessarily an endorsement of the action.
Correct.
But just saying, what did you expect?
No, it's bad optics. I definitely think the Trump administration did not really think this through. And I understand what he's trying to do. He's trying to counter the Democratic position. He's trying to appear as the law and order candidate, right? So I get the politics. The optics are terrible. And to be quite,
of course.
Yeah, and to be quite honest, I would have just let the cities burn. Like, if you do not want to police your own city, let them have it. You know, like, yeah,
I get that. And so yeah, that's that. I mean, it's like, there's this understanding, there's this almost dissonance between those who kind of talk about things as they are and those who talk about things as they should be. And you can talk about both
sure.
as long as you have the just say this, you have the mental capacity to handle both. To be able to
That's a good
say,
way to put it. That's a good way to
yeah,
put it.
it's like I can
To
say,
understand
yeah,
the nuance of the
yeah,
situation, both sides.
taxation is theft, but I'm not telling you to don't file your tax return this year.
Correct. I'm not saying don't pay your taxes. You know, don't get
Yeah.
yourself arrested.
Just understand the principle of it and do your best in your own life and get involved where you can to work to, oppose it, to work against it without jeopardizing yourself in a way that makes you less effective in the long run. Like, you just,
Yeah.
people sit there and then try to turn it into, such and such a person made a threat against such and such a politician, and all of a sudden CIA agents showed up at his house and started and took him to a black site and interrogated him for days. And they go, "Oh, this is an injustice." Yeah, of course it is, but don't be stupid.
Yeah. I mean, and that is the problem with this whole thing is the police and I suppose the National Guard, which have been probably sent in, they're all hypersensitive to what's going on.
Yeah.
Right. So, of course, in light of everything that has gone on, the context of the environment that they're working in right now, it's almost understandable why they would, overextend themselves because of the abundance of caution. So, I agree with your point entirely in that respect. But, of course, the mainstream media is going to place it like, this is the Gestapo, the bagmen of Trump, and they're going to come and, do all this kind of stuff.
Yes and no. It depends on how you're looking at it.
Of course they're going to do that.
What I'm saying is, you got to look at it in a certain way. So you can, I think in principle, it is definitely a breach of freedom that when you're protesting, that you should, if you're protesting, you're doing damage, you should definitely be arrested by police in marked vehicles.
Yeah.
When it's unmarked vehicles, your rights aren't being read to you and you just disappear. I'm looking at it both ways. Okay. Right. You're part of an ongoing threat that's going on in these cities. But also that's really sketchy that the government can just do that.
Is that what happened? These people, we don't actually know if they were red Miranda
I've seen
or anything.
I just saw the footage. It was unmarked vehicles, people wearing military uniforms, and they just took them away.
Right. So yeah, I mean that's kind of hard to judge what actually happened.
But either way, though, it's sketchy.
Oh yeah, of course. I'm not disagreeing with that. But in a riot, the police tend to arrest first, ask questions later. So I'm not.
I mean, I told you about the movie I watched, Patriots Day.
Patriots Day. I'm not sure.
That's the Boston Marathon bombing movie.
Oh yes, you did tell me about that.
Yeah. And what happened was they're showing this whole thing, police response and stepping in to find these guys, and they found them, and there was this heroic struggle, and I'm like, yeah, cool. As I'm looking through it, I'm seeing these huge breaches
of civil
liberties, and I'm like, whoo. I mean, do the ends justify the means? Really, I mean, in this case, maybe I get it, but there was a scene where they showed because they really did a lot of work to make it as accurate as possible. Mm-hmm. So there's a scene where Mark Wahlberg he's one of the cops for the Boston PD cops, and he's with his partner, and they're sitting there, and they basically get an order that say, "Oh, please be advised, arrest these people. No Mirandizing."
Right.
It's like, what? They just look at each other like, no Miranda? What? Never heard of that before.
Charging them with the Terrorism Act or something.
Yeah, and then there was another thing where they arrested the wife of one of the terrorists, and they put her in a room, and all of a sudden these random people in plain clothes showed up and said, "You're done. We're taking over." Obviously, right. CIA.
Right. Yeah.
But they can't say it. They just stepped in. They just stepped in and just sat down, shut off the cameras, did the whole thing. It was and it was all psychological. It wasn't like there was no cop type thing. It was just, this is what's happening. No, you're not. Like, it's pure intimidation. And all this, I'm like, okay, that's.
Yeah, the Terrorism Act is definitely some scary legislation because it does circumvent a lot of just basic civil rights in a sense. You are guilty and you have to kind of prove yourself innocent.
Well, it's like the Patriot Act too.
Well, that's the legislation I'm referring to, right? It's the
Patriot
Act is basically what all of this kind of stems from in that sense.
Right.
So yeah, no, I agree that's, pretty frightening and stuff like that. And I mean, hopefully it's been going to be investigated. Hopefully we figure out who these people were, who sent them, and whatever. I think they realize the backlash that's come from this whole thing. So hopefully we wouldn't see any more bagmen showing up.
Let's see what else is going on. Let's try to go to a little more positive place.
Let's try and go a little more positive.
So I had a great D&D session last night.
Is that why you were sleeping?
Yeah. No. I have been very generous, being my first time as a dungeon master doing this whole game for these people.
Have you been generous, or have the people been generous to you?
No, I've been generous to them because I determine like what happens, what what is the reward. So like last week there was this whole incident where they killed these they had to fight these hags, which are basically like witches.
Yes.
Now just imagine for a sec, if you can, I'm doing the voice of these hags.
Well, do the voice of the hag.
Oh God.
Don't tell me, just do it.
I mean, I was doing some stuff like, I said, so this hag is, cooking up children, and I'm like, and she's like, dinner's ready, just something like that. Just more raspy, scratchy than that. I can't. Doing it on the show is just odd, but
it doesn't feel right.
Not quite, but I dropped this, on them, and they were like having fun with me. They're like, sorry, I couldn't, because we're doing it over Discord. Yes. Just this audio chat, and they're like, sorry, you cut out. What'd you say again? Like they're messing with me.
They're making you do it more.
Right. So they had fun with it. And then of course there's the parts where I'm like playing Japanese characters and whatever. But I even did a little bit of an Irish accent because they met this blacksmith. And then it just kind of came out, and they were like, is that Irish you're trying to do? I'm like, yeah,
well, let's hear it. What's the Irish?
Oh, it was he was Kieran of the old of the old blacksmith. Fuck. I can't do it like, yeah, because I'm like, yeah, and plus
fiddly-dee, potatoes.
Exactly. Hoity-toity-toity. No.
Fiddly-dee music, that's what my friend would call it.
Exactly. So no, I had fun with all that, and then but what I did, because they fought these hags, and hags are like were way more powerful than they could handle. It was quite a bit of luck that they even were able to survive the encounter. So one of the things that dungeon masters can accidentally do is kill their entire party that they're playing.
Okay.
They just give them something way too powerful and kill them all,
Right.
That did not happen. So it was like, so as a result, they were like giving me shit, like, you better give us something really good for this. And I'm like, so I kind of, subtly just gave them, the Lord of the town wants to give you this huge reward, There were some like cool things I gave them. One of them was there's some really funny items they have in D&D. So this thing was called an immovable rod.
Okay.
And I just said, it's just this black rod. It doesn't look like it's made of natural materials, but it's just this rod. And then they go, what does it do? So then what it does in the game is basically if you push a button on it, it stays in place.
Okay.
So it's just a rod. So if I like hold it up in the air and I push the button, I can't move it from that position.
Right.
So it's a very it's a magical item. So it's this utility. Like you can use it to climb things. You could use it like if you want to, like if you somehow are strong enough to impale someone, you can keep them there indefinitely.
Okay. Interesting.
So they can use, there's a lot of these things you introduce into the game to make your players use their imagination to solve problems.
Right. I'm not sure how a rod that doesn't move would help you climb, because
You jump
reach
up,
jump up.
plant it,
Right.
then you can come back down, use a rope or something to then climb above that.
And then what? You pull it out from under you and put it on top. And
if you're quick enough, you could just keep engaging it and disengaging it as you go up. Or
I don't think you thought this thing through quite right.
No, there's a lot of no. This is an actual item you can give them, and it can be used in a lot of different ways. You can use to climb. You could use it to hold giant monsters.
Right. That I can understand in terms of climbing, because obviously you need something to step on. So if you're stepping on the rod, you can't pull it out from under you to put it higher.
Or you could use it to help yourself, like it's a way you can tie something to allow yourself to come down.
Yeah, I get everything else. I understand the impaling and all that other stuff, and the dildoing and whatever. But the climbing part is just kind of, you need more than one to be able to make it.
We have a chick who plays the game with us, and we were like, I'm like describing, one of the King's Guard gives you this item, and then she's I said that he gives you this rod, and all the guys are like chuckling in the background, like, and I'm like, and then she's like, she definitely examines it and notices it is definitely one of the larger rods she's seen, and I'm like, do you want to know what color the rod is? I'm having fun, and it was black. Exactly. So I'm having fun with it, and then there was another thing I gave one of the other players. It was called it's literally called a ring of jumping.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Basically, over time, when you wear the ring, it becomes attuned. So basically connects to them. It has to be attuned to the player for them to use it. It's not just something you can just give to someone else to use. So once he has it, he's already a very strong character, but his vertical turns from 6 feet, which is already pretty ridiculous.
As a jump, wow.
As a jump,
okay,
to 18 feet.
Wow, 3 times. Okay,
so it increases by 3 times. So he can. So I just describe as the ring attunes to him, he starts to like feel very light on his feet.
Okay.
So this guy in this just full armor, just freaking jumping through the air with a warhammer.
I mean, speaking of jumping through the air, isn't it time that we talk about cleaning our balls?
I know. I've been seeing. Yeah. So,
thank you, Brian.
Oh man,
ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and children of all ages,
the moment you've all been waiting for.
The moment you have all been waiting for. The 10K ball cleaning session.
Yes. 10K rum coupon code for the tactical soap. Wash your balls, guys. Or subscribestar.com/shitlord-preachers to support us on Subscribestar if you want to get extra content and, of course, help out the show in a more consistent manner. And, of course, the best way to support the show is always to like, comment, and subscribe. Share the video with a friend that you like. And then, of course, check us out on the podcasting platform. So, what? We got Conk in the chat.
What's going on, Conk?
Good BBR. Be back right now? I don't know.
Big black rod.
oh God. Yes.
Yeah, brilliant, my friend, brilliant.
So,
yeah, I mean, the game nights for you have been pretty consistent, right? I mean, you've been playing every Saturday, is that right? Saturday nights, yep. Yeah, I ordered the rule book, and I think it's been lost in the mail. So that might be a sign that I'm really not supposed to be playing any games at this point. Oh, is that how you're going to justify it now? Yeah, I'm kind of like, I do have shit to do. Maybe some other. You have a life. I could always get the book online and read it. It's not. I could just send you the PDF. Yeah, that's what somebody said. It's like you could get it online. So yeah, there's, you want it. You'll definitely want to get a kick out of the Dungeons and Dragons Oriental Adventures. Okay. So I told we. Is this racist? Oh, very much so. Very much so. I mean, yes and no. Like it's definitely coming at it from an angle where someone was trying to be as authentic as possible, but there's definitely some where it's like, okay, you weren't 100% on this.
Like they try to be authentic, but it is like, it's still Panda Express.
Okay.
It's not your authentic hole in the wall Chinese food place. It's still a little bit of China, Panda Express, Chinese food. It's just kind of, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Fair
So, BBC, not BBR, but BBR. Yeah. Okay. But yeah, so, no, that was like an earlier edition before they went full woke. They had these like materials of adventures, and you could like explore whole new realms of playing the game. And there was like, this one called Oriental Adventures, and it dealt with like samurai, ninja, Japanese mythical creatures, all this stuff. So they just recently, because they're like starting to backtrack with changing the back, they're trying to go back on this. They started realizing, Oriental Adventures,
they got to revamp the whole library at this point.
Yeah, I mean they've had because they tried to like, because D&D at its core was just like, medieval fantasy.
Yeah.
There's medieval fantasy everywhere else in the world.
Yeah.
So you have your, I don't know if they did. I sure hope. I don't know if they did any like other like South American or African adventures, but
I'm sure they have.
Probably something. But they probably, I don't know how carefully they try to tread on those. So we had fun, and then like I threw a tree at my players when they went into the woods.
An oak tree, or
it's called an awakened tree. It's not an ent. Tree. It's not an ent per se.
Oh, okay.
It's like a magically awakened tree. So the moment they killed it, it just literally just fell down like a normal tree. But it was talking to them, and it would try to attack them, but it was not a very strong tree. I just,
Right.
There's a way you can roll the dice, and then I checked the chart and it said tree, and I'm like, here's a tree. As they're going through the woods, a tree randomly starts swinging its branches at you.
Interesting. I mean, this brings us into like I see Corey in the chat is talking to him, saying the leftists told me that orcs are black people.
We talked about that in another episode, and I spent 50 minutes on a rant about a conch, so I'm not going to get into that too much.
I was about to say, but I mean, have you seen this latest video this latest poster that has come out from the African Studies Museum about whiteness in America, and how they try to name all the different systematic things that are whiteness and that need to be abolished, things like the nuclear family or being punctual.
It was like a poster looking thing?
It was a poster looking thing.
Yeah.
I mean,
the scientific method,
rational thinking, linear thinking, anything to do with Christianity or Judaism.
Discourse.
Yeah. So, I mean, that is by far the most racist thing that I have seen. I mean, if that is like pure white supremacy that they've just put out there. Like, that's the stuff David Duke would be saying because he thinks that white people are superior. That's exactly what this poster is saying. They're basically saying that the Aztecs never invented the Mayan calendar. The Chinese didn't understand time. All of these different things, everything that has ever held a society together is exclusively for white people. That's white supremacy. There's no other way to cut it.
Well, yeah, it basically just says every good thing, aka bad thing that happened in society is thanks and because of white people. And it's like,
yeah, that's basically
what it reminded me. So people posted that poster. You know what I posted?
What's that?
What did the Romans ever do to us from the Life of Brian?
From the Life of Brian.
What did the Romans? I mean, granted, the Romans were oppressive against the Jews, but it's just funny how they're like, what did the Romans ever give us? Roads,
the baths, the temple,
the aqueduct,
the aqueduct. Yeah.
Plumbing.
Yeah, indoor plumbing. Oh, the schools. It's
medicine,
just like all of these things.
Education. But if you take away all of that, what do they do?
Yeah. But I mean, there's this woman that's been doing this tour. I can't remember her name, but she's the author of the book White Fragility. I don't know if you've seen anything like that. It's become quite a bestseller in light of all of this, racial awareness that's going on and stuff like that. But I mean, again, it is complete white supremacy. This is the stuff of the KKK, where white people did this, and they've basically built society, and all of these other races are incompetent and they can't compete with white people. That's really what it is. It's white supremacy. And even a friend of ours, the mutual friend of ours that we did a couple trips with, he's kind of fallen into all of this nonsense. And he's been posting stuff by this woman, lectures, trying to say, well, this is why, white privilege this and stuff like that. And I want to tell him.
The one that lives here in this state.
No, the one that lives south, like further south.
I'll have to ask you later.
I think he's in Florida.
I'll have to ask you later.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, a mutual friend of ours that lives in Miami. I think he's still in Miami. I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so he's been I know he doesn't really understand this thing. He's jumping on the bandwagon, and he's got a white girlfriend who's, of course she's an ally and she's trying to be very supportive and everything like that. But what he's posting is white supremacy. This woman that wrote the book White Fragility is basically saying that all minorities are inferior. That's what the book says.
Yeah, it's the bigotry of low expectations.
Low expectations, exactly. And I mean, I don't know why these people just they just don't see it. They absolutely just kind of wash over it. But I mean, it's quite disturbing, to say the least. So what kind of responses have you got with that poster that went out?
I saw it posted in some groups that I'm in that have like a wide variety of political opinions, and a lot of people very much agreed upon the fact that, like, really, like, you're either saying white people, white people are bad for creating all these good things, or all these good things are bad because white people.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, exactly. So which one? Either all these things are bad because white people. Okay, if we abolish all those things from the beginning, like, what basically stop those things from existing in the first place. You can't predict exactly, but there would be a lot of things very different about our society today.
Oh, hell yeah.
Probably not good things. Now, is that saying,
right,
only white people could have made society and social and civilization, all this? Absolutely not. But you point at these things entirely at white people. It's like there's a lot of things within those that are obviously been invented or brought into our society by other people that weren't entirely. Well, it's not even that if they were white or not. It's like they didn't identify as that. Like, look at early American racism that wasn't even just white people versus black people. It was white people versus other white people.
Yeah. The Irish were dogs. The Italians were dogs.
Like, there's movies you could watch that show it very accurately how the Irish were called the N-word in this country.
Yeah. You could look at early shows where Asian people were depicted by white people in makeup. I mean,
yeah,
it's a very recent thing where this homogenous idea of white, as some kind of identity.
I told someone I'm racist on 2 counts.
Right, because you're biracial.
No. Yeah, because I'm Asian, and Asians don't have a culture of activism in the same. At least they don't have a culture of social justice activism in the U.S.
Yes.
So that's some racist there, and then I'm racist because I'm also white.
Yes. And I mean, this actually would affect you as well, in the sense, I don't know. There's this guy on YouTube. I can't remember his name right now. He's a former like a tech worker from Google and Facebook and stuff like that. Asian guy. He's been doing a number of videos, and he actually did one about, Black Lives Matter, the organization, as well as like Asian discrimination that's taking place right now through the affirmative action of the colleges and universities and stuff like that. Even this is something that Larry Elder, I think, was talking about, in terms of if you drop the standards of the SATs to let more minority and ethnic people get in, but they cannot do the work that the university is requiring, all you're doing is increasing the dropout rate for a lot of these students. Now, of course, some will make it, but a lot are not able to keep up with the workload. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what we see happening for a lot of these places. So yeah, I'll have to find his videos and stuff like that, and probably send it to you. And I'd love to hear your feedback, because he is Asian and he is talking about discrimination that he's faced in America as an Asian American, and that whole thing.
Yeah. Rooftop Korean activism. Exactly.
yeah. Brilliant. Welcome,
Yeah.
Tom. Good to see you, man.
Gotta love those rooftop Koreans. I think our friends over at Hapa Supremacy, Shane changed his Twitter handle is still Shane, but his
he did something Korean, something like
rooftop rooftop, half Korean or something, because he is actually part Korean. So I thought it was hilarious. Just for him to do that.
did see that. I did,
but
see that.
you look at the pictures of those rooftop Koreans, like especially there's the one where there's just the guy with a gun and he's just like giving this like thumbs up and smile. This looks so freaking like he looks just like the nicest guy you're gonna meet.
Yeah.
But he's just like, I'm defending my businesses. It's like, wow.
Yeah, it's. I mean, this is it. You don't really hear about that, but in the Asian community, protecting your business and stuff like that, money is very important. Work ethic is very important. I think that was something else that was on the poster, the Protestant work ethic. Hard work leads to success and stuff like that. So yeah, that's something that's a shrine in all Asian culture.
There was the one that you that I showed you last night. Before I was going to bed, the public sex one.
Right.
So there was basically this tweet that was taken as a screenshot saying like the being anti-public sex is anti-LGBTQ.
Yes, anti-alphabet people. And
yeah. It was basically So if you're not for the freedom to have sex in public, you're against
public as well.
Yeah, just sex in public in general, really. Yeah. You're somehow basically against LGBTQ, AARP,
against the alphabet people, yeah,
or against marginalized persons of color, all this stuff. And it's the way they play it out is it was just like, wait, what? Like, and then you made this really interesting. I mean, we could say it freaking forever. Like, it's funny how all started. The radical position, like you always want to, it's the Overton window. You have the radical position over here, and the radical position for a long time was gays should have the equal freedom to like be accepted in society legally, especially like being able to marry each other. So then there was the whole thing like what was it? Civil
partnerships, yeah.
Yeah, there was that, and I was like, okay. So people were like slowly kind of shifting, like, yeah, we're fine with this, we're fine with that. Yeah, they should have even as a libertarian. I mean, libertarians since the 70s were all for that.
Yeah.
And they were just like, yeah, you have every right to like live your life in private and do what you want in private.
Yes,
but now I'm not too concerned about necessarily the legal side of it. I think legally a lot of this craziness that pushes is not going to happen. Like usually you hear about the crazy stuff that happens is on a local level, drag queen story time or something, you have all this stuff that's some schools that just get a little initiative to try to like be radical and progressive.
Yes.
And I don't think as a whole society would accept huge radical changes to change our culture in that way in a legal sense. I don't think so yet.
I hope you're right.
Yeah, and I hope I'm right too.
Yeah, I see it's creeping in there.
So because it's changed radically from we want to be accepted as just equally and having equal rights to marry whoever we want and do whatever we want in our own homes and our own privacy. Because the whole thing was, why do you care what gay people do? They don't affect you, and it's like, yeah, they don't.
Exactly.
I have the freedom
position.
I have the freedom to do what I want, and if I agree or disagree, like. Do I have gay friends? No. Is it because I don't like them? No. And so there's this whole. So it's like now it's turned to it's not only that you have to accept the fact that they have the freedom to do these things, you need to condone.
You need to
and celebrate it.
Yeah, correct.
Pride Parade wasn't just, hey, let's be proud of our identity to live our lives as complete people, fully accepted by society, but we're going to shove it in your face with, our painted dicks and dildos.
Yes.
It's, you see these parades that go completely the wrong way, and kids are being exposed to,
Very disturbing imagery. I agree.
Yeah, freaking twerking and I've seen some really crazy stuff where like groups of men, gay men that are dancing around doing all sorts of stuff, and kids freely exposed to that, and it's like
Yeah.
you know there's this blurring of the lines of certain cultural taboos, social taboos, and it's just like okay. It's not about really it's not private anymore at this point.
Yeah. I mean, if every company changes their company logo to a flag on, what is it? Is July or June is alphabet month or whatever. There's so many of these things now. It's as you say, it's no longer a private thing. Now it's actually kind of being pushed in my face. And we saw the same thing that happened with the Black Lives Matter. And again, I'm talking about the organization. Everybody says, oh, well, Black Lives Matter isn't an organization. Yes, it is. There's a website. They're anti-capitalist, anti-nuclear family, and they're trying to tear down systematic racism or whatever, even though we don't even know if that exists. I don't support that organization. Of course, I support, Black Lives Matter in terms of, my friends who are Black and other people who are Black. Of course, their lives matter.
Basically, you support the idea that Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, I don't support the organization.
Right.
When I log into my bank account, I get a big banner that shows up as I log in, Black Lives Matter. When I log into my PayPal, big banner, Black Lives Matter. When I log into my Firefox browser, I get an email from them basically saying Black Lives Matter. And it's this big banner. And we know, I don't know if you've been following this or not, the money that has been funneled into the Black Lives Matter organization has just been shipped across to the Democratic Party from a lot of these organizations.
Yeah. I also saw I looked on their website just to see kind of what things they put out there, and I could see a lot of things that I'm like, okay, I see like the principles that are here seem sound for the most part. Some of the, we want to affirm these people, we want to stand with these people. I'm like, okay, you want these things, you want communities that don't have this fear. Okay, I get this. Police, fine, I get that. I see all that. I'm like, okay, this is all good. And I just see one line in there. We want to disrupt the Western idea of the nuclear family. And I was like,
yeah.
Okay, I'm like, okay, so yes, what the nuclear family and such. And I'm still looking at this like, it's not a Western idea.
No,
it is and it isn't. It's a Western idea. It's an Eastern idea.
It is an Eastern idea.
And even like, if you want to go look, want to get all, if you want to make it racial, it's pretty prevalent among many, many cultures.
Yeah. In fact, every culture around the world,
African cultures, Asian cultures, European cultures,
the nuclear family or the extended nuclear family.
Oh yeah. In Asia, you have your grandparents that live with you.
India is the same thing. Africa is the same thing. So, but they all have the nuclear family as the only place that is not prevalent is in the West with a welfare state, because then you have a prevalence of single parents.
And then I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, so is this about dismantling? Like, because this is the issues that I'm looking at is I'm trying to stick to issues. So I'm seeing, okay, what are some issues here? Qualified immunity, disparities in sentencing when it comes to drug offenses, which really are just nonviolent crimes. You can look at, certain areas where police brutality definitely has a higher, rate. And you do see, there is times where police, and this is lack of training in police. You have all this stuff, lack of accountability. I agree with all of that. But then when it turns into just slap a BLM on there.
Yeah.
And then it gets tied back to the organization. And then the organization is for the disruption of the Western idea, which is not a Western idea of the nuclear family. That was the one big thing I found on there. I've heard some people go looking some older iterations of the site that showed some other things.
Yeah.
I don't know if they've watered it down or something, but there was just other things that I've seen where BLM is about disrupting capitalism. BLM is about
destruction of capitalism.
Destruction of the patriarchy. So then it starts to align itself with feminism. Okay, so if you're aligning with feminism, are you for basically instead of a a system of merit, a system of quotas.
Right. Well, it's removing the meritocracy in terms of being able to be competent and awarding people based on their intersectionality. So their race, their gender, their sexuality, their religion, and all these other things, that's how they want to fill the responsibility
And
of
then,
people.
you want to talk about religion, do you want to talk about how like every religion is sacred except for Christianity? Am I some like Christian apologist to say like, oh, Christian, but Christianity? Not necessarily, but what is your framework? Is it equality or not?
And I mean, we cannot deny that Christianity has played a massive influence in terms of Western society and Western culture.
But I'm saying, even if you don't even have that, just do you care about equality?
No, of course not.
They don't. Well, I mean, they don't. But I'm saying is like, if you claim to care about equality, you need to start there.
Yeah,
and talk about it from there.
Yeah, if you're special pleading to pick on one religion, you're not really interested in equality. If you're criticizing all religions, like I respect my friend Terrence, who comes in and he's an atheist. Yeah, bash all religions, fine, no problem. If you got critiques with all of them, but if you're special pleading for one and being completely ignorant of the clear problems of another to fit your narrative, then I'm not taking you seriously.
And that's prevalent in the racial arguments, the gender argument, the feminism and masculinity arguments, freaking nationality arguments too. How be proud that you're so the whole immigration thing, be proud that you're Mexican, but there's no borders.
Right, yeah.
Be proud that Canadians are great because they're Canadians, but Americans are horrible because they're Americans.
Yeah. This kind of I don't know who T is in the comments, but yeah, I have a friend of mine. He sends me some videos like that. I've seen a lot of these black activists who more conservative types saying, look, refund our police. They're going out and they're spilling paint over these Black Lives Matter murals in the streets and stuff like that. I'm all protest, counter protest, man. Freedom of speech. You guys go with it. I don't know if you've heard about this thing, Amos, but there was a very interesting tweet that came out from the Libertarian presidential candidate not that long ago about how we're not supposed to be just anti-racist, or we have to be like, what was it? It's not enough to not be racist, but we have to be actively anti-racist.
Right.
I don't know if you've heard about this.
I've heard plenty about it. I can't comment too much on it at the moment.
I know. I was.
So,
yeah. I mean, you should say something because it is a hot topic issue.
Not all, like I will say this. I stand by what they were trying to say, but the delivery is just how it was. There's social media, especially Twitter. Twitter is such a place that intention, messages, and meaning can be so convoluted that people will try to interpret however they want. I gave an example when someone was asking like what they meant by delivery, because there are people who are very much for what this tweet was, and I can see exactly why, because they read different contexts into it. So people were asking me about it, like, what do you think about it? And I said, well, it depends on how you want to deliver your message. Like you and I are seeing the nuance. Like if we understood like the message, and like we talk about these things and we'll look at it and go, oh yeah, I get what they're trying to say. Right. Yes. You understand that. But but if I said, I believe American communities should have should maximize, with the people in their communities to like maximize their abilities, to use their skills, to help people in the community, to fulfill needs, whether it's the poor, the hungry, the homeless and stuff, like that's a very basic, like, American community just in general, being a community driven person. Using your abilities, maximizing abilities in your community to help other people. Someone said that once, and he has a whole lot of other ideologies tied to him that make that quote very ominous, even though it's not necessarily a bad thing. What was it? Marx said, from each according to his ability, to each according to his needs.
Yes.
That technically is what I said.
Right. In the difference between what you said and what,
purely in the wording.
yeah, in terms of, I mean, the difference is Marx is saying that that should be enforced by the government. You're saying it should be
Exactly.
enforced voluntarily. Yeah, I get it. It's the same thing.
But see, I didn't say any of that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying this should be this, and he said this should be this.
Yeah.
We didn't say how that should be that.
Right, exactly.
So this is the understanding of these words. Like, so that specific tweet I can actually refer has been said by two people prominently. One was Angela Davis, a Marxist feminist,
yes,
former Black Panther member, and a libertarian thinker that came afterwards that quoted it back in a different context.
Yes,
talking about a whole different thing. Two people very different ways of thinking. Very different ways of thinking on how to approach that statement.
Yes,
because I can say it with more words and still say the same thing. Yes. It is not only important to understand that we should not be racist, but that we should be actively against the laws, the systems in place that allow for racism to continue or allow for racism to play out in ways that could be unfair. Qualified immunity, police brutality, sentencing disparities, and all this stuff. Very real things that I can point out. But if I just said anti-racist, the word is interpreted in a very different way by a whole bunch of different people. That can be one side. People think, anti-racist is kind of like this condoning idea. Like, some people have certain preferences to be friends or to not be friends with other races, or some people even maybe they don't care. They just like, I like friends, but maybe I'm not attracted to people of different races. Like, people have a hard time understanding when I tell people that Asian women are not my first choice,
right, to
date, and they're like, "Well, why?"
You prefer Hapa, don't you?
Hapa or white?
Fair enough.
Yeah, and then they said, "Now, does that mean I'm not attracted? Yeah, does it mean I'm not attracted to Asians? Does it mean I'm not attracted to Black people? I've totally been very attracted to all those other races, but in general, my preferences tend to lean a certain way."
Sure.
That's called in-group preference, which is a very real phenomenon that is not some racist thing. It's just, if I like a certain color to wear for clothing, I tend to buy clothing that complements those colors or surrounding those colors. Does that mean I'm a colorist?
No, I get your point. I think, just to throw my 2 cents on the whole controversy, and it was controversy when that came out. I mean, everybody in the Twitter sphere went ape shit. Me out here in contact with the UK Libertarian Party, they went ape shit. They're still not living it down, right? Like, even to this day, when the candidate says something, a lot of the people's response is, "Oh, this is coming from a Marxist sympathizer," right? So,
and it's like, no, it totally was not that meant to be that at all.
The truth. I think the truth of the matter is, from my opinion, and what most of us are kind of thinking, is that she didn't know what she was saying, right? And obviously, there's somebody who's doing the tweets for her. We know she's not directly connected to the account,
right? And
that's kind of the position we're taking, because the response to that, I think I showed you one of them. It's not sufficient to be against communism. We have to be specifically anti-communist. And there's a picture of like Pinochet's helicopter
throwing people out of the house,
kicking communists out of the
helicopter. So I'm looking at it two ways. Like, because I do work for the campaign and such, and I'm doing, helping them out with stuff. Like, I do see it, and I'm like, I'll explain it to people and say, this is the message that was trying to be conveyed, and I will stand by it, because regardless of, there's the controversy as a whole, that I'll stand by it because I understand what the message is.
Sure.
But I can but at the other hand, being the libertarian, being the sort of the anarchist leanings and such, where I'm seeing this sort of chaos and controversy coming out of it, I can't help but appreciate the memes.
Yeah.
So it's like, because it is what it is. You have all these situations that play out that can get really, hairy. Like, Aleppo. Like, everyone knows about Aleppo
now,
and but it's become such a meme. Now, was it some huge gaffe that completely like derailed an entire movement and all this stuff? No, it's just, you have these moments with candidates. Some go one way, some go another, and they can kind of change They definitely changed the course of things. But people
Yes.
thought like Aleppo was some big deal when really it was just like a common gaffe.
Yeah, well, like I was saying with you, you never know what's going to derail a campaign, and it could be something completely innocuous. So we
Yeah,
talked about
people
Howard
like
Dean. Yeah, we
people
talked about
came at
Howard.
me about Aleppo. They were like, "What is this about?" I'm like,
Yeah,
"Really?"
yeah. Around the time Johnson was running. So like Howard Dean, he had the we're gonna go to Vermont and Virginia and we're gonna take back the White House. Yeah. And anyway, that completely fucking killed his campaign. Al Gore kissed his wife on stage and like he tongued her down. That fucking killed his campaign. Like you never know what gaffe is going to take place that will kill a campaign. I mean, I don't even know why Joe Biden is fucking running at this point because he's had so many.
You got these kids in the swimming pool playing with his leg hairs. It's like, what? But this is the thing. Somehow all those gaffes he makes aren't derailing him that much.
Well, it's because he's going up against Trump, and Trump is Mr. Teflon. Like, there's nothing that will stick to Trump. So I think the Democratic Party is forced to give Joe.
Is it just such a chaotic sort of scale between the two of them that like basically the scale has broken and it's not measuring anything accurately, that everyone's just like, fuck it, we got two weights on the scale, let's just hope one of them wins.
I think there's a bit of that going because Trump is just so unpredictable. He's not a politician. None of the political tricks have worked. I mean, it looks like some investigator from the Obama administration is about to be brought up for questioning because of the whole Russiagate scandal. It looks like the Obama administration was involved in that whole thing and wasted taxpayer money. Nothing stuck to Trump. And at this point, I'm still pretty much convinced he's, the Trump train is unstoppable at this point. I think apart from massive stealing from, voter fraud and other things, I think Trump is pretty much a shoo-in to win. Especially if the economy gets into trouble, who are you going to trust to really bring the economy back? Trump or Biden? It's kind of a no-brainer at this point. So yeah, they can't do anything. They can't play his game because everything that they're complaining about, like Joe Biden's positions, Biden has been in the Senate for 20 years, 18 years. I don't even know how long he's been there. You're going to blame all of America's problems on the politician that's only been there for 4? And you've been there for like your entire life?
Yeah, a lot of the concerns and problems with the modern day policing, sentencing guidelines, and just the power that police have in the U.S., the abuse of power that has come of that. A lot of it can be attributed to Biden.
Yeah, Biden and Clinton. Clinton did whatever the police reform and stuff like
Both
that back
Clintons.
in the 90s. Both Clintons, yeah.
Yeah.
So you're gonna point, and I love the fact that Trump right now is pointing out the hypocrisy of all of these cities that have rampant violence. The Democrat-run cities, and he's not afraid to step up and actually say that. It's quite incredible. And I know you can't really talk too much about your work and your job and stuff like that, but if you're not going to play the political game, if you're not going to play the political machine, you have to be brazen in your position, and that's what Trump is. He is really a train. Nothing is stopping or derailing this guy.
Yeah, no, I understand when Brook is saying this, everyone, and when I'm agreeing on this, it's not like we agree with Trump per se. It's just understanding strategy, because that is the unfortunate truth, I think, of politics, is the strategy tends to outweigh policy and principle.
Correct.
So while policy and principle are really what matters in the long run,
yes,
because those are the things people are going to see. Like, yeah, you do this, you work out your policy and principle, but when it comes down to it, it's the strategy. Like, just like think of all the good politicians that use strategy to win and help change the course of history, but also just as effectively, think of all the politicians that have used strategy to win that completely destroyed countries.
Correct.
And I mean, there was a really famous one in Germany that got really good at, trying to take over the world for a sec there,
Yeah. There's Godwin's law in action.
Yeah, Godwin's. You have this. You do have the two sides of it. Like, I was having a conversation with someone about regarding like, just talking to people, learning about different things about like friendships, relationships, and stuff. And I have this thing. I have this tendency, just in general, in many circles of friends, whether it's with when I was in ministry. This is definitely a thing. Like, I'll tell, because people wouldn't really see this if I told you this, but you would know what I'm talking about. Like, in our times in ministry, there were definitely times where like people would tell me things, and I would feel this sort of feeling to like want to do something about it, because like one person would tell me this, another person tell me that. I'm like, well, that's a misunderstanding. Like, let me step in and try to help, like try to fix these things,
Bridge the gap. Yeah.
Right. And now I've kind of learned like to not do that as much. I'll just kind of like sit there and listen. But when I'm there and I'm listening and I'm realizing what's going on, like people become comfortable to talk to me about certain things and tell me certain things that they probably wouldn't tell others. I kind of feel awkward, and I'm sitting and I try to explain this to someone because they asked me about that, and I was like, well, I said, you really got to understand, like, because we were talking about like people do certain things to manipulate, to be abusive and all this. And I said, well, I mean, it's crazy because really, like, a person's ability to make someone feel comfortable, to be vulnerable and to open up and talk to them is a kind of manipulation.
Yes. It can be. Yeah, I agree.
I said, because I'm just creating an environment that makes you feel comfortable to say things you usually wouldn't say. I said, now the difference is like, I care about people and I want to hear things to like let them kind of vent and do their work things out.
Yes.
I said, but it just you flip a little switch and I could totally just say all sorts of things about people that shouldn't be heard about by other people and completely ruin relationships. I said, but that's the difference. You have the person that people feel that can use that manipulation to almost coerce people to tell them things and use it against people. But in that same way, using it in a positive way, people can use those same skills to garner information just to help people, through situations.
Yeah, I think, is it the 48 laws of power or something along those lines?
Yeah.
That actually, it kind of plays into those strategies, of course, for different reasons. People play, but this is it. Every interaction that we have is a form of negotiation with a person, either to influence them in some fashion. Well, it's all influence. The only way to get people,
and trying to influence someone is almost a kind of manipulation.
Exactly. So, because you only have two options: you have influence and force, right? So everything is really, it comes down to influence. To get somebody to do something willingly.
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong.
Even just proper discussion and like, calm, rational discourse has an element of trying to convince the other person of your ideas.
Correct.
And trying to
you're trying to negotiate with the car, you're kind of influencing, don't run me over, this kind of thing.
Pedestrians that think it's totally fine to just dart out into the street is actually manipulating the driver to stop.
Correct. So that's almost a use of force in a way.
Even though the pedestrian is technically, like, physically a smaller means of force. So just think about that, like the power that people can have both for good and for bad to make all sorts of changes. And then, of course, now you apply to a larger scale political strategy.
Yes.
Trump appeals to people in a certain way, in a certain strategic way that make people feel a certain way to want to vote for him. The same way Biden has got a whole different thing going on that somehow people are going to vote for him too.
I don't think anybody is voting for Biden at this point. I think it's all pure Trump hate. That's what's driving. And I think he's just lassoed himself to the Green New Deal. And he's come out against
the new Green New Deal.
Yeah, like the new Green New Deal, which, I mean, this is what sank Hillary Clinton and these others, right? I mean, again, you it's not just closing coal mines and gas and whatever; it's all the subsequent jobs attached to those things. If you're gonna, even the police union, which is such a Democratic stronghold, has now come out and supported Trump. Because Biden has made suggestions that he wants to reallocate funds for the police, basically defund the police, not using that language, of course. The police know what's going on. So Yeah, I think the Trump train is pretty much on track at this point. Very quickly, man, what do you think about Oklahoma being cut in half?
So I wanted to bring this. This is an interesting point too. Was so people were kind of like thinking it's ridiculous because it's American land. Now Minnesota has like a handful of um, Native American reservations. Some of them have casinos, some of them don't.
Yes.
And the ones that don't tend to be, they all have their own problems. So the ones with casinos tend to be overrun with nice houses, but indulgence, just a lot of people with so much money that they don't really live very productive or meaningful lives.
Yeah.
They're not really contributing to society. Some do, some don't. But I mean, you got that. And then these places where like there's no casinos, it gets overrun with like drugs and alcohol and abuse.
Kind of slums kind of thing.
Yeah. So you've got that going on there. So I'm not saying necessarily it's a good or bad thing because of this. I mean, there's a whole history, there's a whole cultural thing that's going on. I'm not tackling that, but you already have these things. So I don't really know purely on principle about the whole allocating part of Oklahoma to then turn it basically expanding in a reservation. On that point. Now, some people were arguing, why are we doing this? Why is it basically, the Babylon Bee made like a parody about Chaz,
right,
saying like Oklahoma is going to be kind of like an Oklahoma autonomous zone, and Elizabeth Warren was going to be the new warlord of that area because we're a Native American background. Hilarious, but someone brought an interesting point of kind of just a line of logic to point out that I thought was hilarious. And it was like, so the whole thing with statues and flags. So the Confederate flag, people say don't fly it because that's the South lost. It's not really a heritage thing, and I can okay, I can see that. Fine, you want to do that, whatever. People want to argue that. I can kind of see where they're coming from. They want to take down statues and deface them for like Confederate, generals, soldiers, leaders, people who own slaves, stuff like that. Better argument: take them down, put them in a museum if you feel such a way.
Or just erect new ones if you have to.
Well, no, I get that. Yeah, you erect new ones, but I mean, if you don't destroy, because they are technically historical, put them in a museum. Sure. Make a smaller replica of them somewhere. Like, just you have that as a separate thing. Like no one's putting up like a statue of Hitler. Like there's statues of Hitler in museums.
Yes.
So I can get that. And so I get that, not to compare the South with Hitler, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So you want to be like, that's more practical. So they're saying because you want to take down statues, you want to take down these flags because, the right is all day long going on about, participation trophies and, just because you lost doesn't mean you win anything. So why are you defending the losing generals, the losing flag because of the Civil War and all that? Okay, cool. I get that too. Like, it's kind of funny, why are you defending the statues? And because I really don't have a stake in it. So I'm just kind of like, just historic benefit, put these in. Yeah. So I thought it was funny. So then someone said, so why are we giving half of Oklahoma to the Native Americans who lost our conquest to our conquest? And I was like, it's funny, but funny.
But the logic is pretty sound.
It's the logic. Yeah. It's like, I'm not advocating one way or the other, but the logic is hilarious. Like,
the logic is sound.
It's like, really? Like, you're not like, it's not like the Britons are going to give back their land to the barbarians of old.
Yeah, we're not giving it back to the Norse invaders or who else we had. The French or anything like that. Yeah, it's conquest happened all the time. That's how we got.
Conquest happened. Yeah, conquest happens all the time. It's important. Well, it is good that we have our moral views to look at history and see like what is right and wrong. Mm-hmm. You cannot write those things with that lens. Correct. It's not entirely proper to do that. There are things where it's like, okay, I think there's some things where you can examine and go, okay, this is pretty bad. Like there's memorials for, historical events like the Armenian genocide, the Holocaust,
Yes.
Holodomor, some of these very horrible atrocities that happened in human history. You
Yeah.
honor it, you respect it. There's that. But then you have all these other things where it's just like, it's like we can't right every wrong and just have everything. Like, it's important to preserve history, but it's like almost like, every little thing has to be,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you look at something like Auschwitz, with the concentration camps and everything like that. The Jews paid to keep that memorial there.
Yeah, because they want people to remember it. I get that.
And I mean, it's directly detrimental to them as a people. It's a horrific, they were technically the losing side to a certain extent, with the Holocaust and everything like that. But they don't want people to forget. And that attitude, is lost in especially amongst the youth in America. It's completely, the SJW brainwashing is complete. And there's no win.
I mean,
there's no way to win that.
They're keeping some stuff too. Like, I've seen these museums where they've kept all like the shoes and the clothes that they collected.
Yeah. I've been to the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C., and there's 6 million shoes behind a big glass, like sandals and stuff, behind a big glass something to represent the 6 million
How did they
Jews.
fit that?
It's huge. It's massive. If ever you're in D.C., you could take a look. But yeah, because they want people to remember. And I mean, of course it looks bad. It's atrocity for the Jews, all these other different things. But that's a mature outlook, that these are the things that we need to remember. And not every Confederate general was a reprobate and a slave owner.
Yeah, the thing was
valiant.
There were abolitionists that served for the South.
Yeah, of course.
And there were very staunch, like, pro-slavery advocates in the North.
Yeah, I completely. And the left does not understand context. They do not understand. For instance, there was a Nazi general, I think his name was Rommel, who fought in North Africa against the British, but he was a man of honor. And even Winston Churchill stood up in the Parliament building and commended Rommel, this Nazi general, for his efficacy in war. Because he was a fantastic general. Yes, he was a Nazi, but yes, he was actually brilliant, and people actually respected him. You cannot say that.
There were assassination attempts. There were assassination attempts on Hitler by his own men.
By his own men, right? The Valkyrie. I think there's a whole movie about this type of. These are Nazis who thought he went too far. They were Nazis, but yes, they somehow the humanity reached through. But the left doesn't understand context. They don't understand nuance. All Nazis are bad. In fact, everybody who disagrees with them is a Nazi. All this other nonsense, and that's very disturbing.
It's a completely misunderstood idea of how human nature is. It's either like all Nazis are bad. There's that logic. So they say all Nazis are bad. None of them are good. Following orders is bullshit. Which you can't. I get that point. Like I get all that.
Yeah.
But then you look at the nuance of history and you see, like, okay, some of them were actually hated Hitler. Some of them actually wanted to kill him. Some of them tried. A lot of them almost succeeded. All these situations you can play out. Okay, so there's all that. So there's the nuance there. But then you come over here, Mao, Stalin, Pol Pot. Just not real communism.
Not real communism.
Millions
die.
Whatever other excuse. That was state capitalism, not actually this, It
was the famine. It was
the famine.
Disaster.
Yeah, Holodomor was totally the famine because they were just. Actually, I saw that. I'm gonna probably check it out. There's this movie called Mr. Jones.
I don't know it.
So it follows a New York Times reporter who went into Ukraine when this was happening. So basically what happens, it shows this huge contrast where he goes to Moscow, and Moscow at the time, with their strict controls, reporters can only go these places, journalists had all these things. He encounters a Pulitzer Prize winning New York Times.
Right.
And how he's just having these lavish, debaucherous parties with all the communist leaders in Moscow.
Yeah.
He's just living his life, and they're just peddling all this propaganda, but
Mhm.
everything's going great. And then this reporter just kind of heard something was going on somewhere else and managed to basically kind of sneak out of Moscow and go into Ukraine.
To see
And
the real thing.
he found out about all of this and got out, told his story, and years after he got out of Moscow, he went back towards that general region of the world, and he got killed by the secret police
Yeah.
of the USSR, like
Yeah.
in Mongolia or something. Like they
Sounds about
found him
right.
and heard where he was and tracked him down and killed him. So it was just showing how, like, the media can capitulate to all these things, the propaganda, but it was just showing, like, you know, just because, like, the media doesn't always going to be truthful. And
What a surprise.
yeah, and how, like,
Shocking.
they like the Pulitzer never actually took back that guy's prize,
Really?
even though they knew he was playing right into
The
um
propaganda.
yeah, the propaganda, the pushing, the peddling. um but I think we should definitely start wrapping it up here. But
Yeah, we bring it in for a
Brian
while
is
here.
asking in the chat, just notice this show is not number 100. Yes, we're technically, this is the 100th episode.
Yes, just by pure
Technically.
numbers. Yeah, by pure numbers.
Actually, it's probably more than that, but
Yeah, because I think we've
we've
had a
had
couple half episodes.
we've had some half episodes.
And we deleted one. We had one that we removed. So technically, this is 101.
Well, we've also had, like, special edition live
Yes.
streams, like a birthday stream I did. We did one way, way, way in the beginning where I did, like, a special thing where it's just me and the guests doing different
Yes.
things.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff. Brian, Brian in the chat, and also everyone else in the chat, and also people who are listening. Episode 100 will not be next week.
Yes.
Next week I'll be traveling. I'm going to basically join the campaign trail for one event. I'll be meeting up with some people to just have more in-depth discussions about just a lot of things with the campaign, obviously, and all that. So I'm doing some traveling. I'll be gone the whole weekend. And then the week after that. So right now we're doing different things. Like we've been reaching out to some of our former guests that have come on to kind of see, and probably not going to invite them to come on per se, but we're trying to get, like, a video going to, all the guests we've had, all the, kind of a
tribute.
Looking back. Yeah, tribute.
A
Looking back at the
congratulations tribute.
Yeah, looking back at the episodes, talking about, probably have a more structured show talking about, like, different things that we've done on the show, like,
Yes.
probably like a walking down memory lane kind of thing,
Remember when we didn't have decent microphones?
You remember when I was using my MacBook's camera?
Yeah. Remember when I had the earbuds from Apple as my microphone?
Remember when I was wearing my Kekistan hat?
Remember when you grabbed the lube when Arnold Schwarzenegger pulled out an M16?
What?
That was actually an Instagram clip that I pulled from one of the episodes. But yes, we will do like a review for our maybe even open it up for a couple people to jump on if they want to.
Yeah. So
that will be not next week, but the week after.
No, yeah. And then
so that'll be the 2nd of August will be the 100th.
Yes. So I'm just figuring something out too. Okay. So yeah. So of course, being at the end of the show,
time to wash your balls.
Wash your nuts.
Wash your
check
nuts.
Check out Subscribe Star. Busting that. 10K rum on tacticalsoap.com. Subscribestar.com/shit-or-preachers for different ways you support us. Buy soap or just give us money every month, No, you get cool stuff for being part of that. So there's that. Do like the video, comment below, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to us on
various podcasting
platforms such as iTunes, Podbean, which is where we're actually hosted, or Google Play. Share the show with anyone you think will like it, and we will of course a bunch of links below. We will of course see everyone in 2 weeks
on the 2nd. Thanks for watching, guys.